The bar was loud that night. Laughter, rock music, and the clinking of glasses filled the smoky air. A dozen leather-clad bikers sat around, their tattoos glowing under the flicker of neon signs. They were men who had seen too much of the world's darkness, the kind who didn't scare easily. But none of them could have imagined that, in the next few minutes, the sound of a little girl's sobs would silence everything. Outside, rain poured in heavy sheets. The old wooden door creaked open, and a small figure stumbled in, soaked, trembling, and barefoot. She couldn't have been more than 6. Her hair clung to her tear-streaked face, her white dress stained with mud. She looked around with wide, terrified eyes before collapsing onto the floor, gasping for air. For a few seconds, no one moved. The jukebox kept playing an old blues tune until one of the bikers, a man with a gray beard and deep scars, slowly turned down the volume. The room fell into silence. The little girl's voice broke through the quiet like a knife through glass. "Please help my mama," she cried, her voice shaking. "They're beating my mama." Every man in that bar froze. The leader of the group, known only as Bear, stood up from his stool, his boots echoing against the wooden floor. He walked toward her, his massive frame casting a shadow over the trembling child. For years, he'd been feared across 3 states. But now, his tough exterior softened as he knelt in front of her. Her small hands clutched at his leather vest as she sobbed uncontrollably. "Please, mister, they're gonna kill her. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Your one click helps us keep telling stories that show there's still good left in the world." The men exchanged glances. Outside, thunder rumbled. Without a word, Bear stood up, his jaw tight, his eyes cold with purpose. "Where?" he asked in a low voice. The girl pointed down the road. Behind the old gas station, in the blue house, that was all he needed. Bear looked back at his crew, rough men with broken pasts, but hearts that still remembered pain. "Let's ride." Within seconds, engines roared to life, shaking the ground like thunder. The little girl sat behind Bear, holding onto his vest with tiny hands as the headlights sliced through the rain. The night became a blur of wet asphalt and determination. When they reached the house, the front porch light flickered weakly. Through the cracked window, they saw a man, tall, drunk, and furious, throwing punches at a woman who had fallen to the floor. Her screams were muffled by the storm. Bear didn't knock. He kicked the door open with a single blow. The drunk man turned, cursing, but froze when he saw 6 bikers stepping through the doorway like shadows from hell. The leader's eyes burned with fury as he growled, "That's enough." The man raised his bottle, slurring something, but before he could take another step, Bear's fist connected with his jaw. The impact sent him crashing into the wall. The other bikers grabbed him, holding him still as Bear leaned close, his voice like gravel. "You ever touch her again, you won't live to regret it." The woman lay bleeding and bruised, her hair matted to her face. The little girl ran to her, sobbing. "Mama! Mama!" she cried, wrapping her small arms around the woman's neck. The sight broke the toughest of hearts. Bear knelt beside them, his huge hand resting gently on the mother's shoulder. "You're safe now," he said softly. The woman looked up through swollen eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, trembling. "I didn't know where else to go." Bear shook his head. "You don't owe me thanks. You owe her," he said, nodding toward her daughter. "She's the one who saved you." That night, the bikers took them both to their clubhouse, a place no outsider ever entered. They gave the woman dry clothes and food, wrapping her in blankets. The little girl sat beside Bear by the fireplace, sipping warm milk from a mug too big for her tiny hands. She looked up at him and asked in a whisper, "Are you angels?" Bear chuckled, a sound rusty from years of silence. "Not the kind with wings, sweetheart," he said. "But maybe tonight we can be close." The men around them smiled faintly. For the first time in a long while, they felt something they'd nearly forgotten. Purpose. These weren't saints. They were ex-soldiers, ex-cons, and wanderers. Each one carried ghosts of mistakes they'd never undone. But in that moment, they realized redemption sometimes comes disguised. Sometimes as a small child begging strangers for mercy. The next morning, the storm had cleared. Sunlight poured through the dusty windows, casting golden lines across the floor. The woman, whose name was Anna, sat quietly by the fire, holding her daughter close. She told them her story. Her husband had changed after losing his job, drinking, raging, and blaming her for everything. She'd tried to leave, but every time, he found her. Tonight, he had gone too far. Bear listened, his face unreadable. Then he stood up and said, "You don't go back there. Not ever." He handed her a small envelope. Cash, enough to get her started somewhere far away. "You take your girl and make a new life. You don't owe us a thing." Tears welled in Anna's eyes. "Why you're helping us?" she asked. Bear looked toward the picture on the wall, an old photo of a smiling woman holding a baby. His voice cracked for the first time. "Because I once had a daughter who needed help and nobody came." The room fell silent. Anna covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. The bikers looked away, pretending to busy themselves, but every one of them felt it. The weight of his words. That night, Bear had given them more than protection. He had given them back their humanity. Over the next few days, the bikers helped Anna and her daughter fix up an old camper van that had been sitting behind the clubhouse for years. They worked together, hammering, painting, and laughing. The little girl followed them everywhere, her laughter echoing through the dusty lot. The men started calling her Sunshine. One of them, Tex, taught her how to ride a tiny bicycle. Another, Grizzly, carved her a small wooden angel with leather wings. Even the roughest among them found himself smiling when she was near. It was as if the girl's innocence washed away years of grime from their souls. When the day came for Anna and her daughter to leave, the entire club gathered outside. The engines idled softly as Bear knelt to look at the little girl one last time. She threw her arms around his neck. "I'll never forget you," she whispered. He swallowed hard, patting her back gently. "You go make your mama proud, Sunshine. And remember, the angels always ride with you." As the van rolled down the dirt road, the men stood in silence. The little girl's hand waved from the window until she disappeared around the bend. Months passed. Life at the clubhouse went back to its usual rhythm. Long rides, late nights, and the unspoken bond of brothers. But something had changed in them. They found themselves stopping to help strangers on the road, fixing flat tires, donating to shelters, visiting kids in hospitals. Their name, once feared, began to carry a different kind of respect. One evening, Bear received a letter. It was from Anna. Inside was a photograph. The little girl standing in front of a small school, smiling in a clean blue dress. On the back were the words, "Sunshine started school today. She says she misses her angels." Bear's vision blurred as he stared at the photo. For the first time in years, he felt peace. He pinned the picture on the clubhouse wall, right next to the one of his late wife and daughter, and under it, he wrote just 2 words, "Second chances." That night, when the bikes roared again, they weren't riding for rebellion. They were riding for something far greater. They were riding for kindness, for redemption, for the little girl who taught them that even the hardest hearts can still choose good. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us bring more real, emotional stories of humanity and hope to the world. Before you go, comment below. There's still good people in this world, because sometimes it only takes one act of courage and one innocent voice to remind us all what it means to be human.